Is that what you're doing? I don't like it. That's your culture, is yodeling? Is this Burning Man? What's going on? This is weird. You know,
I'm not surprised that Sabrina Carpenter has had yet another ignorant gaffe on stage because she has a pretty long history of doing this.
I don't like it. That's your culture, is yodeling?
One of my most viral takes on this app is of me criticizing Sabrina Carpenter for fetishizing black men on an international broadcast. That was just the first time I was made aware of her using a stage to peddle that kind of ignorance, and the second time happened last year when she used the VMA stage to peddle propaganda using the talents and bodies of black, queer, and trans people to avoid critique. And now she's coming under fire because she was very openly and visibly on stage being uncomfortable and dismissive of another person's culture. White pop stars are generally very ignorant and childish, so I don't know why people continue to be shocked by this behavior, especially when Sabrina herself is following in the footsteps of her foremothers. It goes back to Christina Aguilera, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift. While she has taken ownership of her initially negative and dismissive response to Zagruta, I still think it's entirely disappointing for her to be a whole vocalist and be so put off by allelation. Because it's a vocal mechanic that's widespread through North Africa and parts of West Asia, but she as a vocalist should recognize it as a valid form of vocal production, like trills, riffs, runs. How do you think people are hitting those? Especially from a white woman who touts Beyonce as her GOAT. Like, Beyonce is your favorite singer, but you're afraid of a little Arabic influence? Don't get weird. And I've spoken about this before, but this is exactly how racism and prejudice can impact how you hear and digest the sounds around you, especially when they come from different culture. A white American being put off by Zagruta is a direct reflection of this country's xenophobia and Islamophobia. End of discussion.
I think I heard someone yodel. Is that what you're doing?
I'm interrupting right there just because as soon as that fan said that it was an Arab call, I was like, oh. Just because, for context, if you don't know, Sabrina Carpenter has been consistently and remarkably silent in regards to a certain Arab people being genocided by a certain country that I cannot name on here, but if you're an American, your tax dollars very much do go to. So as soon as I first saw this clip, I was like, okay, we might be in a dicey situation here, and Sabrina Carpenter's gonna have to tread very carefully. And listen to how she responds to that.
I don't like it.
Saying I don't like it is wild to me, because keep in mind, Sabrina Carpenter came up in Disney. She has Disney media training. Let's see how things proceed from here.
I don't like it. That's your culture, is yodeling?
And that was the part that made my jaw hit the floor the first time I watched this. Because why on earth would you, as a media-trained white woman in 2026, hear somebody say, like, oh, this is my culture, I'm expressing myself as we do in my culture? Would you so snidely say, that's your culture, is yodeling?
That's your culture, is yodeling? Is this Burning Man? What's going on? This is weird.
Okay, so luckily that is the end of the clip. But what do you mean, Burning Man? As a media-trained white woman, and then to immediately go and follow that up to make sure that you quadruple down on your white woman sneering, and to say out loud, as if we can't tell by your endless facial expressions throughout this entire clip, that this was weird. Like, what, why on earth? Like,
of everything from this whole Sabrina Carpenter situation, what's really shocking me is how backwards we've gone in terms of conversations about racism, and how people are now acting blind and stupid about, like, microaggressions or unconscious bias, which I don't really buy in this particular situation with Sabrina Carpenter, because I know I've spoken about the backlash against woke, about right-wing backlash, but it was really like interesting to see it in full effect here. Like, if this happened 4 years ago, people would largely be like, this is an instance of an ignorant white woman who doesn't like things that are foreign, and it is a form of, like, a microaggression. It's not like calling somebody a slur, no, but it is a form of racism, like it is. But we have gone so backwards in the conversations about racism, and you have white people saying, it's not that deep, it's not that deep, it's not that deep. And then on a particular strain of TikTok feminists would say, you wouldn't say this about a man. You wouldn't say this about a man.
I'm so proud to be a millennial woman who is not afraid to look a 50, 60-year-old man in his face and tell him to shut his motherfucking mouth.
Whenever there's a criticism of particularly female pop stars, female white pop stars in particular, because of course Sabrina and Lynn Carpenter is the most oppressed minority on this earth. This big white woman really has it the worst in the world right now. But yeah, I just find it really interesting how backwards we've gone and how people are just so closed-minded about racism that isn't in your face explicit. It was, at best, it was xenophobic. At worst, it was downright just racist. Because you hear something a little bit different and you go, ew, that's weird, I don't like it. It's fucking rude. That is a very rude thing to do. And that tells a lot to me about her character. She's a stuck-up white woman. Duh. Look at her. People be like, stereotype. I'm like, you guys can stereotype about my people, but I can't say anything about you.
Excuse me, hold on, wait. What was that noise? Oh, it's your culture? Wait, what was that noise? Oh, it's your culture? Okay, period. What was that noise? Your culture.
These celebrities do not know how to celebrity. Miss Sabrina, you had an opportunity here. She could have been like, oh, okay, that's cool. You want to show me how to do it? You want a microphone? We could get to doing that up in this motherfucker. And that would have been so cool to see. She probably would have grew an even bigger fan base from it. That would have been cool in my opinion.
You as a white person are not qualified to say whether a white person is racist or not. You as a white person do not have the qualifications needed to tell when something is or isn't racist. You as a white person cannot say something a celebrity did is not racist. You are not the demographic who gets to decide that. You have no say in the conversation. Your job is to listen and learn. Your job as a white person, when there's a conversation about race happening, about racism, something racist that someone did, your job is to listen and then support the voices of the people who are qualified to speak on it. Because white culture is abolishing other cultures. That's what white culture is. Imperialism is white culture. That's why I'm anti-racist. This stuff matters. A lot of people don't know this, but some of the most prevalent and influential racists throughout, especially American history, I'll focus on American history, were rich white women. Rich white women are very often racist. Not necessarily in a KKK way, but that's not the only form racism takes. You do know that, right? That's an extreme caricature that is definitely very, very harmful and is bad when it exists, but that is not even the most common form of racism. In fact, believing that is the most common form of racism actually undercuts the work that we're trying to do in this anti-racist circle of trying to unpack the more prevalent forms of racism, like covert racism, like disrespecting someone's culture, even when you're given the chance to apologize, even when you're given the chance to appreciate it and express gratitude for their expression of their culture, or just go, oh, thanks. And then not doing it, that's racism.
Sabrina, I'm here to tell you, we don't want your apology. We don't want your apology because every word you said, you meant. And you can't take back saying, that's your culture? I don't like that. You don't like somebody's culture because it's different than yours? Confusion, sarcasm, and not ill-intended? Who thought of that? You or your PR? Because that was not you. Because what you think is that's just, you don't like that. Ew, you don't like that. That was your face.
Something that I've seen in response to the whole Sabrina Carpenter incident is the way that people rush to defend their idol or favorite artist when it comes to microaggressions or inherent racism that they might present and showcase when being exposed to different cultures. And being explained to what it actually was that took place by the person who did the Zagruta, and having a look of disgust on your face in front of thousands of people and thousands more watching and saying you still don't like it, it's no different than whitey people going to specialty stores, pertaining to a specific culture and then complaining about how they don't like any of the products. Like, you don't even need to be there. And you don't need to make those unnecessary comments. For people making those specific comments of it's not that deep, you're reading too much into things. It is. For Native Americans specifically, we weren't considered citizens in this country until 1924. We weren't allowed to have religious freedom, expressing ourselves through dances, religion, prayer, and ceremonies until 1978. It was outlawed so that our children cannot be ripped away from their families to then be forcefully sold in churches and for foster care until 1978. The last boarding school that would assimilate Native American children into American culture, into European culture, basically cutting off all their hair, abusing them, didn't end until 1998. Indigenous languages weren't allowed to be used in public schools until 1993. And they're still trying to challenge and overturn these laws and acts that were placed to protect indigenous communities in this country. So when people say it's not that deep, this is recent history. This is the last generation. This is your parents' generation, your grandparents' generation, all people that are alive still. And this microcosm of what this incident was is basically a showcase of how built-in white supremacy, how built-in anti-indigeneity, how built-in anti-blackness is to this system that currently works. What Sabrina showcased is only a sliver of what inherent racism, inherent colonial mindsets and behavior is like. Because even though she may not have intended it, as some people are trying to frame it as, it's impact over intent. It's the way that you're brought up. It's the way that the system works that ultimately demonize, silence, and oppress indigenous people and communities of color when trying to bring up concerns and comments that affect them.
I decided I'm not working on my attitude anymore, babes. Y'all just gonna have to stop fucking playing with me. It's real simple.
And Sabrina Carpenter's reaction is just an example of something that people of color have been dealing with for decades now. Many kids, including myself, would be too scared to take their cultural food to school because kids would look at them funny because they would be like, oh, your food smells and this and that. But now those same people are getting hot pot, they're getting ramen, they're getting Mexican food, they're getting Indian food. And yet when those same people would bring that food to school, they would bully them. And don't even get started with, oh, she apologized, or it's not that deep. First of all, the only reason why she apologized is to save her image. It's the same thing as if you get in trouble at school and the teacher makes you apologize, but you don't actually mean it. It was a Coachella concert, so there's no reason why it would be dead silent. There were people cheering, and then there was people laughing when she tried to be funny. It is not a joke. It is not a joke to make fun of somebody's culture. She heard, it's my culture, and then she said, it's your culture? That's weird. I don't like it. You're weird for saying that.
Confuse the enemy. Yep.